Nothing quite sounds like a Moog filter. This is the Werkstatt, the 2014 Moogfest kit, where people who attended Moogfest 2014 could sign up for the engineering workshop and build this. Post Moogfest, they decided to release the kit to the public. So you were able to buy it. It's a very simple kit. There's no soldering involved. It's just bolt together, screw together the case, and you have what is probably the smallest actual Moog synthesizer that they've ever built. The basic circuitry of the Werkstatt, the signal flow, is very, very similar to the synth that came after this, which is the Mother 32. So it's a single oscillator. You have a main frequency knob and a choice of either pulse or saw wave and pulse width modulation. So if I put this in sawtooth mode, and then in pulse mode, and you have manual pulse width modulation. So you have manual pulse width mod, start in the middle. You also have a VCO modulation section where you can take one of two sources, either the envelope generator or the LFO. You have a mount control and then a destination switch, which you can put in PWM or in frequency. So I've got the LFO on triangle wave. Got the source being the LFO. The LFO is turned all the way down. Make that about 50%. And the LFO does go up into audio frequency. You can also have the envelope generator modulated. So if I throw the envelope generator on, there's a single AD envelope with sustain. So it's attack decay with sustain. And then just like some of the older Moog synths, it uses the decay as the release. So if you have no decay, you have no release. Turn that in there. Or run it to the frequency. Down in the LFO section, simple rate knob and a selector for either square or triangle. So I've got on pulse width mod, rates turned all the way down. And you put it in square wave. You do have a nice LFO to indicate LED to indicate the LFO frequency. And you can see it gets very, very fast. You have a standard Moog, traditional Moog ladder filter with resonance. So the filter, there is no mix control. So there's no way to pull the oscillator out of the mix easily. But the filter does self-resonate. There's also no onboard direct access to key tracking for the filter to key track the keyboard. VCF modulation sources, 2, the LFO and the envelope generator. Interesting, you can flip the polarity and do negative modulation or positive. So I have the LFO in triangle mode going to the filter, but doing a negative mod. So the Werkstatt became really popular. It was designed with internally on the main circuit board up here. There's a section to basically a bunch of open solder pads so you can build mods into the case. And there are several mods online that are available. I have modded mine so that there has a gate in on a mini jack over here on the end. The other thing is Moog released a header. So this header is what you did for modulation patching. And it came with this cute little bag, which has just bare wire pins to jump between things. It also has the Built By sticker that I never put on the back of mine. So over here you have CV outs and CV inputs. You also have a audio in that leads to the filter. So there's an LFO in for LFO CV control, VCA, VCF, linear VCO and exponential VCO in. You have the VCF audio in, but remember these are mono jacks, so there's no ground, they're just the positive end. And you would have to tie the ground of the Werkstatt to whatever your audio source was, whatever your mixer was. So you can take things like, I'm going to take the LFO out from here, and let's say I have the LFO and the envelope generator going negative to the VCF. I can also take the LFO out to the VCF in. Or into the VCA in. You can get the keyboard out is over here, so the keyboard CV out, and you can then add that to the VCF, So you get a kind of pseudo keyboard tracking, but there's no attenuation controls. And one of the popular mods is to add more attenuators on that built-in circuit pad to be able to attenuate some of these. So then Moog came out with this. And this is, it's got a pin header on it right here that plugs into the pin header here. And then it's MIDI jacks. So it's 1/8" MIDI jacks, VCA, VCF, CV, the linear and exponential FM in, LFO frequency mod in, the audio in that drops into the filter, keyboard CV out, gate out, envelope generator out, LFO out, VCF out, and VCO out. So I'm going to install it again. It lives on there since I bought it. And the Werkstatt is not available anymore new, but there's lots of them available used. This circuit board was still available on one of the large online music retailers, so you can still get some of the parts for it, and there's lots of online info. This is how mine normally lives. I'm going to plug power back in. Make sure I didn't mess with the pin header. A couple of limitations on the Werkstatt. There's no volume control at all, and there's no power control. There's no power switch. So once you plug it in, it's on. So I've got it plugged in. Now I can do that same patch I did before. I can take, for instance, I can take the keyboard CV out, just right here, and I can plug that into the CVN of the filter. The filter closes as the keyboard comes up. More importantly, I could patch this through an external attenuator and then bring it back in and control that easily with any kind of passive attenuator or Eurorack attenuator module. Other thing it gives is the ability to control this easily from external sequencers. So next I'm going to set up is the SQ1 and show you how I normally control this. So now I've added the SQ1 to the setup. This USB cable here is just providing power. The SQ1 sequence A, this top 8 bank, is providing CV out, goes over into the exponential in on the VCO. The gate out goes into my gate mod that's around the end. And again, the reason the gate mod is really helpful because the only way to get gate in through the header is you go in the gate out. And it is not the most reliable circuit. This actually puts a whole gate processor in and taps it to the same place. It's paralleling it to the gate of the keyboard. So if I go down here on the SQ1, the gate is very regular. Then the other input I have over here is for the LFO frequency, and I'm going to tie that to the CV out of sequence 2 in a little bit. So once you have the headers hooked up, then I have the SQ1 in just trigger mode, so I can trigger individual steps and tune them if I want. And the header makes the Werkstatt basically respond just like any other Eurorack or any CV controlled synthesizer. Couple of things. So this CV in here is paralleling the keyboard notes. So the pitch is added, this CV is added to the keyboard CV. So if you're using the Werkstatt and controlling it externally, you have to make sure you hit the correct key on the keyboard, or you won't get the notes you want. So here's the sequence. And I can play with the duty cycle on the SQ1. There's glide there, but because I'm triggering externally, the glide has no effect. But I can turn on glide on my sequencer, and that works just fine. So this glide control is part of the keyboard circuitry, and because of where these control signals are going in, it doesn't apply. What I can do is I do this. You can hear the gliding across the keyboard circuit and then altering the pitch of the sequencer. If I take it down to one step, the last bit I'm going to do is plug the CVB into the LFO. The LFO, it's going to control the LFO rate. I have it on a square wave, and I'm going to send that to frequency of the oscillator. So let's see what that does. And you can see the LFO rate is changing along with the settings of the output of sequence B. I can also put it on pulse width. There's no modulation. There's 50%. So that's the end to my short little clip about the Moog Werkstatt. Again, I'm continuing Starsky Carr's Virtual Moogfest. I've got 3 more synths over the next 4 days to kind of show you. We're going to go in reverse chronological order. So I'm starting here with the newest and smallest and lightest, and heading backwards in time. So tomorrow we're going to go from the Werkstatt, which was 2014. We're going to jump back about 21 or 22 years to, actually we're going to jump back 30 years, 321. So tomorrow, today we were in 2014 with the Werkstatt. Tomorrow we're going to go back in time about 30 years to the early 80s and look at the Z80 powered Moog source for my day 2 of the Virtual Moogfest. Hope you enjoy.